How many of you are just like me, in that every time you turn up to one of your favourite marks, you think, this is going to be the day. The rest of the beach may as well pack up, as I'm catching it all today. In your head, you're already thinking what that caption's going to be on that Facebook post holding that fish of a lifetime. I'm sure there's many of you that get those feelings in this very car park. Chesil, the beach of broken dreams. But to be fair, where else in the country can you find one venue that on its day can chuck up line-screaming taupe, alien-looking triggerfish, anaconda-like eels, and raise the size of dustbin lids? Chesil really does hold some magic. But we're into the depths of winter, and you're not really supposed to catch fish in winter. January and February are those months that the real grease comes out in between those odd whiting sessions, right? Well, I've come to Abbotsbury to see if any of that magic is still knocking around. To find out, is Chesil still worth fishing in the winter? In terms of tactics, we've got one rod with a pulley pennel and a whole squid out there. That is going to be searching for, hopefully, anything that will take it. A cod, a conger, a bass, who knows. And the other rod is a 2-hook, flapper, clip down rig with at the moment worm baits on. And that's going to be pulling us out pouting, maybe cod, whiting, potentially some bait fish that we can use a little bit later on a third rod when darkness is here for some conger. Now, some of you may have noticed over the last few videos, over the last few months, I've been after a big conger, a big eel. I fished for them in Cornwall, I fished for them a few times in Chesil in kind of December and November, and I fished for them obviously down in the Bristol Channel, where I managed to find one, but it was £3–4, it was nothing special. So it would be nice to tick one off. I think there's more chance of a nice big eel than there is of a cod, but you never know. It's pretty flat calm conditions today. I've got here literally at the bottom of the tide, slack tide is pretty much now. I'm going to fish the flood all the way back up to about 10 PM, and then depending on how things have gone, maybe stick around a little bit longer, but we'll see. I've got a whole host of baits, mackerel, squid, worm baits, and of course hopefully we'll pull out some nice fresh pouting which we can use on some big hooks later. Just coming up the beach there and I saw scuttling along quite high up, and he's obviously been washed up. Little hermit crab, tucked away. You might just see his claw there. Don't worry, I'll get him back safely. Now, I have been putting a lot of effort into my casting lately. In fact, last time I was down Chesil, if any of you guys see, me and Darren we're practicing our casting on an empty beach, and it's definitely getting there. I think I've got a decent cast in me now, every now and then, not 100%, but with that being said, I sent that out. It was a decent cast, but that definitely needs re-spooling. I can see the backing. Hopefully, whatever picks that up doesn't take too much line. That's a winter job I'm putting off. Re-spooling with braid. I'll do it soon. But I've just noticed that big cast I just did on the squid bait. It's been in for 5–10 minutes. And it's already starting to get little tapping bites. So that is making me think that the fish may be a little bit further out. So a big cast might be what's needed today, because I mean, I've had baits in the water for probably an hour or so before that with nothing. And I have noticed most of the people fishing around me, a few people have actually packed up and gone home. Most of the beach that I've seen are casting quite short in, probably 50, 60, 70 yards if that. So I'm going to try and get all my baits. Luckily, all the rigs I'm using are clip downs. I didn't plan to fish at distance today, but I'm going to try and put some oomph into it because it might just pay off. So the title of this video, is Chesil worth fishing in winter? Is anywhere worth fishing in winter? It can sometimes feel that it's not. But a little bit tongue-in-cheek, of course. I appreciate any beach, any venue, especially Chesil, on its day, can fish well. Sometimes you turn up on the middle of Neeps when it's completely flat calm, no tide, you think you're not going to catch anything at all, and you can have a red letter day. Other times you can turn up when it's beautiful spring, some nice onshore breeze, lots of activity in the water, and it can be dead. I'm sure a lot of you experienced both of those. I definitely have. So as I say, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek. I'm not suggesting that me turning up today, if I do end up catching into some decent fish, means that winter fishing is 100% viable. The same, if I don't catch anything, it also means it doesn't mean it's not worth trying. I'm just out here in the middle of the depths of winter, seeing if we can't catch something decent. Because I know a lot of people don't bother with Chesil in January, February. Some people don't even bother really fishing at all, which I think is a shame if you're really into it. I get if you want to kind of have a bit of a break and take a step back in the colder, darker, harder months to fish. Putting a pause on your fishing in January, February because you think the fishing is bad. I mean, you can just look on Facebook every now and then. Some stunning fish do come out all over the country. But my quest for a big eel, a big double-figure shore-caught eel, is still ongoing. I did debate turning it into a YouTube series because it started to become that much of a difficult task almost, but I know it will happen. To kick off 2025 with a nice big fish would be ideal. Right, well, both rods just started getting bites coming through. Quite small tapping bite, so most likely pouting or something, but oh, there we go, the left rod there, had a little dip. So the left rod's got a black lug on it, tipped with squids, and the right one has got a whole squid on it, on the pulley panel setup. I'll give that left rod with the worm bait on probably a few more minutes, and then we'll check it just to make sure something isn't on there. Oh, yeah. Let's check that. Well, no fish on the end, but they definitely found the bait. Now, I nearly lost the rig. I got snagged on the way in, which is surprising because you rarely get snagged at Chesil. There's not really any snags out there. But I managed to free it after a bit of a tussle. Anyway, let's get it back out. Now, one thing I do like to do, which some of you may find useful, some of you probably already do this yourself, I've just brought this pulley panel in, which has only been in for about 20 minutes or so. Bit of squid, which, I mean, there's still some flesh to that, there's still some meat. And rather than rebaiting that and wasting that squid or chunk of squid even, what I do like to do is if I've got any scrap of worm so I went to dig some ragworm yesterday and some lugworm, and as can often happen in the winter, it can be quite difficult to come by if you're digging it yourself, because the frost, the cold weather does make them go deeper, makes them harder to find, and they just seem a lot more scarce. So I have got some worms that will not really take they're not big enough for a nice big cod bait, won't really take a hook on their own very well. And all I like to do is just nip them over the hook of the pulley panel on a bait like this, a squid bait. It just freshens them up, and I can put a couple on there. Two fairly small worms that I've just, as I say, nipped onto the hook. Get a little bit of bait elastic and just lightly bind them on there, like that. And there we go. That's a nice bit more scent onto that squid bait. I can reuse that, chuck that back out, see if it can't catch me a nice little coddy. With the light fading and no further signs of a fish, I decided to set up a third rod that I brought with me, in the hopes that an extra tactic and more baits in the water would find me a fish. However, before long, darkness had fully set and the fish were still playing hard to get. Well, we're a couple hours in. As I'm sure you can tell, it is dark. I think we're coming up to half five in the evening. Well, that's afternoon really. And apart from the odd tap and tremble on the rod tips, still nothing to show for it. So the answer to the question at the moment, is it worth fishing in winter? Based off this video, no. Stay at home, stay warm, save your money, and wait for spring. But no, I think we're in a bit of a predicament where there's definitely little fish out there pouting and whiting and stuff, which are tapping away at bigger baits. Now these two rods at the moment have fairly big hooks and big setup on, searching for that bigger fish still. The third rod that I've got out down here now is my 2-hook flapper rig with size 1/0 hooks, so not massive but not too small, with the worm baits on. I'm surprised it hasn't picked up anything yet, any of the pouting that's out there. I could downsize the hooks definitely, and I would be more likely catch one, but I've still been toying whether to do that so I can chuck one out as a conger bait. But at the moment I've still just held on to the dream that there might be something a bit more worthy to show. That worm bait rod just rattled away again, which has been the story of the night so far. So I might have to downsize the hooks shortly just to avoid the blank, to pull something out. Right guys, we just had our first signs of a proper fish. I literally just walked up to the top of the hill for a wee. As I was walking back down, my left rod, which is one of the big baits, I can't remember, it's either a whole squid or it's a squid and mackerel. Just completely went a big bite. Hasn't seemed to have hooked up yet though, but that's really encouraging. The worm bait rod keeps rattling off as well, but I'm leaving that out there until it completely commits to something. I'm hopeful here persistence is going to pay off. You can probably see that middle rod, the red flashing tip light. Keeps going off. It is getting pecked to death by little pouting. Come on. Whatever gave us that big bite doesn't seem to have hung around. Okay, oh well. It's a good sign though. It's the first proper bite we've had all night. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you would not believe it. We have a fish. A little whiting, beautifully lip hooked. Oh, but I'm actually pleased to see a fish. Now, do I put him out as a conger bait? Yes, yes we do. Oh. He was very lip hooked. I'm going to put him back. Well, I'm relieved it's not a blank. I can still say I've never blanked on Chesil, which is pretty much the only venue I can say that, but... Well, we didn't blank, did we? But definitely hasn't fished well tonight. Have we answered the question, is Chesil worth fishing in the winter? Who knows? Depends what day of the week it is. Depends if the fishing gods are on your side. But having said that, it feels like there's some unfinished business. It doesn't feel like this is the end of this story. Or this video. Tell you what, come with me this way. Oh, that was a long walk. Luckily, I've come to another beach, and by the time I've got here, I've found someone's gear that's identical to mine. So I'll use this. Welcome to Milford Shinglebank. Welcome back to Milford Shinglebank, Hurst Point, whatever you want to call it. It's about, I think, what, a week or so after that Chesil trip. We've got neap tides, or quite small tides at the moment. But even still, we're in the middle, we've got a weather window in between Storm Irwin or Uwin, or however, I don't know what the name it is. Today, Saturday, where we had winds kind of Thursday, Friday, we had some strong winds, kind of 60-mile-per-hour winds, and then Sunday, tomorrow, picks back up. So we've got this little weather window, which is fishable. Although, for whatever reason, even though we're on small tides, really quite small tides, whether it's the swell, we've got a big swell coming in at the moment into the shingle bank. The tide is ripping, and I mean ripping. I've got a 7-ounce lead on and I'm not holding bottom. So, we've got a bit of a challenge on our hands. I know the video originally was, is it worth fishing Chesil in winter? At this point, I'm asking the question, is it worth fishing anywhere? But I say that in jest. Of course it's worth fishing. You never know. Your next cast could be that fish of a lifetime. It's just, I think in winter you've got to work a little bit harder for the fish. You have to. More challenging conditions, often rougher conditions, and less fish to catch as well. Trickier fish, so that's what we're experiencing right now, I think. Challenging conditions. Struggling to hold bottom for sure. And as I say, it's small tides. So one reason I picked it, with it being such small neeps at the moment, that I think it's a 0.8, 0.9 metre tide. But doesn't want to play ball. Now I'm in two minds because I'm also picking up a bit, I've just taken off this line, but I'm picking up some weed on some of the casts. I'm in two minds that before I lose the light, to pack up and move down to Hordle Cliffs, where I think the tidal pool won't be as bad. I think we should be all right there. But it would mean moving, getting back to the car, driving down there, or I could stick it out and then looking at the tidal pattern, the tidal curve I should say, at about 7, 8 p.m, it should start to slacken off a little bit, which is in like 3, 4 hours time, but I lose that amount of time fishing. Decisions. What do we do? What do we do? I think if we had just one of the two factors, if we had just the tide, I think we can manage that. If we had just the swell, we can manage that. I think a mixture of the tide and the swell is just making this really difficult to fish. Do we move? I think we do, guys. I'm desperate to find a fish tonight. Let's go Hordle. Determined to get on the fish, I packed up in the dying light and set my sights on a more manageable venue. Right, let's go check out if we can fish here. Unfortunately, after a quick recce of Hordle, the big swells put me off. Although this looked bassy, I didn't want to struggle holding bottom again and knew I'd be pushed right up to the top of the beach with the incoming tide. Another drive west brought me to Steamer's Point, but again my plan was foiled due to what I assumed was a match, as every available bay on the beach was occupied by an angler. Oh my gosh, what an absolute... Just trying to get a spot on the south coast at the moment I can fish. But I'm here, down at Fry's Cliff, kind of Avon Beach area, away from that match that we saw before. And finally, I can hold ground. There's not a match going on, I've got a bay. So there's a chance of finally finding a fish. Now, even though this is one of the closest marks to my house, I've never actually fished it before. I know it's very shallow. And what's encouraging actually, beach below me I'm fishing onto is littered with ray eggs. So I've got one ray rig out, squid and sand eel, or sand eel and squid, and then a tiny 2-hook flapper rig with a bit of squid tentacle on there, just to pull out a fish, man. I did think this video would really showcase how hard winter fishing would be, but I didn't think it'd be this hard. Big swell out there still. The tide's coming right up to like the bottom of my feet here, which is why I'm on this concrete block. I hope what this video is really bringing to life, or showcasing I guess, is winter fishing. It is difficult. It's really tricky. But I do think it's the months where you can become a better angler. It forces you to fish harder, fish smarter, be more mobile, enjoy less cups of tea. It's my first one of the evening. But in those months where you can't just go out and flop a bit of mackerel or squid and expect to catch, you know, really good bream or good bass or smooth hounds or whatever, that itch doesn't get scratched unless you do fish a bit harder or fish a bit smarter. Put some extra hours in. Try and finesse your rigs a bit more. Put more effort into them, into the knots, the size of the knots, the size of your hooks, the size of your line, all that kind of stuff. It's definitely got me thinking over the last few months. How can I put that extra 10% of fishing knowledge and fishing expertise that I learned from a lot of YouTube, to be honest? How can I put that into my own fishing to try and get a good outcome, try and get a good result? I think you need the blanks to become a better angler. Having said that, I feel like I've had enough blanks for the last few weeks, so let's try and get a fish on this one. You might be able to make out just there in the distance that moving light. That is a boat entering into Muddyford Run. I'm doing that in the pitch black. I've done that before actually, and it's not for the faint-hearted. It's quite a treacherous channel, especially in the winter when the buoyage system's been removed and you're having to either do it by memory or checking the depth as you go along. But yeah, not easy. I've got to say, I'm surprised my little size 4 hooks on that flapper rig that I'm fishing with the squid tentacles isn't picking up any whiting or pouting or anything. It hasn't moved at all. But I have just remembered at the bottom of my bait bag, I've got some old, scrappy, salted blow lug that came out of the freezer a few days ago, and I'm going to stick it on. On the off chance I can find a winter flounder. I've not had any flatfish since the turn of New Year, since last year actually. Probably when I went place fishing, I think. It was late summer, so yeah, I've not had a flatty in ages. So, if I can lure out a little flounder, or dare I say it, a sole, on some old scrappy worm, I'll count that as a success. So let's get this baited up and stuck out there. At this point, after hours of fishing and driving, any fish would feel like a win. So, after much patience and rebaiting, we beat the blank. Guys, the worm bait's done the trick. Fish on. Oh yeah, fish on. Oh no. Do we still have a fish? I think we do. Yes guys, we have the fish. Guys, we have found the fish, finally. Oh man. Don't get your ropes up. Wow, switching to the worm baits has done the trick. We've got a pouting, and not a bad size one either, to be honest. I'm just pleased to be onto the fish. The switch to the small hooks and the worm baits has done the trick with a nice little pouting. Let's get him back. We're not blanking. Oh, ain't it amazing what a little pouting can do for the morale? I tell you, if we had that back at Chesil, that would have been going out for a big conger bait. In fact, it's exactly what I wanted, but a bit late for that now. But no, you've got to count your wins when you get them, for sure. I came out here to catch fish, and I've now caught a fish. I know it's nothing stunning, nothing special, but it makes the move feel kind of worthwhile, because I could have sat there and blanked. I could have sat there and caught rays and conger all night. I don't know. But I'm not blanking now, so cheers to that. So, back to the key question that we started this video off and has resulted in us pretty much going across the whole Dorset coastline. Is Chesil worth fishing in the winter? Well, what we end up really asking is anywhere worth fishing in the winter? And of course, yes, of course it is. Every venue, every mark, on its day, summer, winter, spring, autumn, can produce amazing fish. But the important thing is, and this has been a learning experience for me, I genuinely believe these winter months can help turn you into a better angler. It forces you to fish smarter, fish harder, and often in new environments, in new marks, like I'm doing today. So yes, Chesil's definitely worth fishing in winter. Every mark, every venue is worth fishing all round, all season. It's always better to be out there wetting a line than wondering what if. But anyway, I think I've fished out this beach for as much as it's going to produce me tonight. So I'm going to pack up and head home. Hopefully these stormy conditions are going to really turn the fishing on over the next few weeks. We're going to be back into spring tides as of next week as well. So fingers crossed we can get to some decent fish soon. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Right, I would like it noted that I specifically put my jacket back on when I'm not actually that cold yet, and swapped my hats over. So I matched the outfit that I was wearing at Chesil the other day. Although I did forget I'm wearing a different like neckerchief thing, and I think this top is different, but oh well.